Hello, dear compatriots. My guest today is Ara Papian, Council Member of National Democratic Alliance. Welcome to the program, Mr. Papian.
Nice to meet you.
Mr. Papian, yesterday, Azerbaijan subjected the Stork mine area to intensive artillery and mortar attacks, something that you had predicted in your March 16th interview. What is remarkable is that Aliyev, instead of decelerating the tension after the Washington negotiation, is actually intensifying the pressure to Armenia. What do you think is the purpose of such a brash act immediately after, in spite of the efforts of Washington to de-escalate the tension? Do you think it has to do with applying pressure on Pashinyan to sign the so-called peace treaty? And in your opinion, do you think it will even ever be signed, and under what circumstances?
I do not think that in near future so-called the peace treaty will be signed, because Aliyev himself is against of that treaty and he is against the peace. Maybe a brief document can be signed just to regulate shortly the relationship between two countries. It will be done under the pressure of Washington and Moscow. And there is a competition between these two centers of power. And also we can see Brussels is coming ahead as well. On May 14th, there will be another meeting. But it's harder now to get to something to agree to. Let's take this latest event, shelling Zod mines. What is the main idea of Aliyev? To make Armenia, to force Armenia to concessions and also to impose restrictions in terms of income, taxes, which were, let's say, paid by this mine. It's each will lose each month several millions of dollars, which were paid by this mine. Also, over 400 people lost their jobs. This policy is becoming more violent, but the general line is the same as it was for a lot of years or decades. Let's say always Azerbaijan was trying to make weaker Armenia, to push out Armenia from some general international projects, to not allow real investments in Armenia. And just speaking about peace or even signing peace treaty, I am not hopeful that we will have peace based on that document. The peace in our region can be based just on justice and also on balance of military, economic and political power. For that, as BEVER, National Democratic Alliance, always was speaking, it was to have real friends, to be in an alliance with Western countries and to get first military support and also economic investments in terms to rebuild or restore the equilibrium.
Mr. Papian, what do you think we can expect from the upcoming negotiations in Brussels and in Moscow?
As I already told in previous question and answer, I'm not hopeful that we can have something tangible. This is just a competition between Brussels, Washington and Moscow going on. Previously, it was done in the same group. We know this Troika of Minsk group. They were, in a way, supervising negotiations, supporting. And now, because of Moscow policy, that Moscow violated the previous agreements, that not a single country or party to Minsk group can act separately, but Moscow did. And this is that now every party is trying to have her or his game. There will be negotiations, there will be some statements, but no real result with positive outcome. Meanwhile, Azerbaijan will pursue the policy of inflicting on Armenia injuries, wounds in terms of political and also, unfortunately, physical terms. I mean, killing our soldiers and the members of civil population. I think the main goals for Armenia now is, in short terms, to try to invite international peacekeepers for Karabakh and to Karabakh. This is very important. The second step is to challenge the main idea, the main basis from Azerbaijani side for the negotiations, saying that Artsakh or Karabakh is legally or internationally part of Azerbaijan. We have to say that we agree with the notion of peace, with the goal of peace. We are ready for delimitarization of the region and to recognize the international borders. But to do so, and for that reason, we have first to go and apply International Court of Justice, each side, and clarify the internationally recognized borders, and then sign the treaty, which means we cannot expect anything serious before solving the main issue, which is the international borders between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
During and after the war 2020 and up till now, Russia and Turkey have been supporting Azerbaijan aggression against Armenia. However, with the war in Ukraine and the earthquake in Turkey, both countries supporting Azerbaijan is bound to decrease or disappear completely. What should be the Armenian side to do? What should the Armenian side do under the circumstances in order to change the situation in favor of the Republic of Armenia?
Yes, I agree that Russia is busy now with her war against Ukraine and becoming weaker. And this means that we had predicting several years ago that Russia will be forced to leave Caucasus, South Caucasus. And many so-called politicians saying that Turkey will replace Russia. Maybe this is the desire of Turkey, but we are against that policy. This is we are advocating for Western engagement in South Caucasus, and especially the United States. And we see Armenian position as one of the major allies of non-NATO allies of the United States. This status will give Armenia possibility to get support, including military support from the United States, because you already mentioned that Russia is not the Armenian ally, and Russia has a lot of interests with Turkey. First, its political interests. They both are against Western countries, and as it was a century ago when Kemalist Turkey and Bolshevik Russia were against West, and they unified their efforts against Europe and West. The same situation, we can see that it's repeating the situation. Second is are the economic interests of Russia with Turkey. They're trying to use Turkey as a hub for gas export to overcome all these restrictions imposed on Russia, and Azerbaijan is one of the main links between Turkey and Russia. And this is why Russia is so interested to have a so-called Zangezur corridor, this pathway through Zangezur, to have land, maybe railroad connection with mainland Turkey through Nakhichevan and Azerbaijan to export, or also to import some goods that cannot be done directly. And this is why we can see that the United States, they have new package of restrictions, which means the import of Russia through third countries. There are much more restrictions over that. Unfortunately, Armenia was used by Russia to overcome this economic blockade. And in this way, Armenia is jeopardizing her position in West, because the position in the West is very important for us. Instead of trying to have closer relations with West, because we can see that even Russia, Putin has signed so-called declaration of November 9th. They never tried to implement, let's say, the point 6, which means it's 5 kilometer wide corridor, so-called Lachin corridor between Armenia, main Armenian part of Armenia, Artsakh. So having no other choice than with the West, we have to be more active, more decisive, because when people say that we have to have closer relations, positive relations with both sides, Russia and West, unfortunately, it is not possible for now, because after, let's say, 2007 so-called Munich speech of Putin, and especially the last years, we see that there is a big, even a quasi-war going on between Russia and the West. So it's not the position of Armenia to decide for others. It's for Armenian position is to have a decision. If Russia, and Russia for sure is against Armenia, we have no other choice to look to the West and try to engage them more in our part and to solve with their help our existing problems.
Mr. Papian, the things that you are telling is more like coming from sober mind and dictated by the ideas of NDA. But does our government, today's acting government, is leaded to that? Because in fact, what we can see is completely opposite. And it brings like a huge conflict within the country, within the nation itself, because majority of our people even don't think that way.
Unfortunately, our government is acting under pressure and under dictate of Kremlin, Moscow, because participation of Pashinyan in that military parade on the Red Square, it was senseless, because even Aliyev was so smart not to go there, and we see Lukashenko was there, and these former Soviet republics of Central Asia, and in these circumstances, West will be in the eyes of West, Armenia will be seen as part of Russia, and nothing positive will be come out of his visit to Moscow, but instead of that will even destroy the relations with West. Unfortunately, you are right. The majority of our people, they do not see as a choice West, because they do not know anything real about West, even using the achievements of the West. In all Armenian families, you can see Western-based technologies or goods, beginning from computers, TVs, Facebook, internet, and so on, the cars, nothing Russian. But because Armenian people are told through Russian propaganda and Armenian propaganda, which almost is the same, just in the Armenian language, that there is a choice, just a choice between Russia and Turkey. And when you put on the table just these two choices, for sure Armenians will choose Russia. But we see that the world has been changed. because of technological change, the weapons, let's say, power projection, which means that a country from far away can project a military power over a region, is much easier now. I mean, for the United States to project a power for over 1,000 kilometers is much easier now. But unfortunately, our so-called public TV, which is state-controlled TV, they do not give us an access and opportunity to speak to our people, to explain. But we, sooner or later, Armenian people will understand that we, Armenian National Alliance, was right, as in many cases that we have predicted. But unfortunately, we are paying a price for that, sometimes a high price, sometimes with blood and lives of our young generation. But what we can do, just try to explain to our people the real situation, also to create new bridges with Western countries, which we are trying to do. And I will not go into details, but I will say that last 2 months, during these 2 months, I was in the United States, Mr. Sefiliano was, and we had very interesting and very, let's say, fruitful meetings. And we can say, I can say that the attitude of the West has been changed generally, and we are expecting to see more precise steps in our region, especially for Armenia and between Armenia and other countries.
Thank you. Mr. Papian, do you think this latest attack by Azerbaijan will be needed catalysis for Armenian people for resist the aggression and simultaneously revolt against current regime, which collaborates with the enemy at every step of the way?
Unfortunately, not so much. Yes, it has some effect of thinking and actions of people, but it seems that all people always hope that somebody else will do instead of them. Will take some steps. Many people, I meet many people each day on the streets, everywhere. We have a lot of supporters, but unfortunately, the majority, the question they ask is, what you will do? That's the question, what we are going to do together. What you want to do? Okay, what telling? Okay, if you want to save the country, we have to be together. We need your support, because it's not the obligation of a political group, party, or people. This is our homeland of our people, and we, each of us has the obligation, the duty to do something. And my message to the people, Armenian people all over the world, is to understand that we are standing on the edge of losing our statehood, which means losing a statehood will means to become just a group of people dispersed all over the world without no hope, maybe creating again a statehood. During 20th century, twice we had this choice. We created our state. Once we declared in 1918 and the second time in 1981. Unfortunately, we misused all, let's say, speaking about last years from 95, 96, even 94, since armistice ceasefire, instead of creating an independent state, I mean the government, not the people, They were selling all property to Russia, giving control of Russia, all the fields of our economy, as well of our military power and diplomacy as well. So we always speak, and we will do everything to have the occupation. And saying the occupation, it means more independent Armenia, and also having the idea that we are the generation which is obliged to solve all the problems for the coming generations, because if we will not be successful for the coming generation, it will be much harder to do, with less choices to do so. So the idea is, and the message to our people is, support us, to give us a possibility to support you, our people. What we are doing is for our country and for our people. So we need the joint efforts, we need common goals to implement them.
Thank you, Mr. Papian, for accepting our invitation and being our guest today, and of course for the interesting interview.
Thank you for the invitation.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear compatriots, and follow our page. Thank you.